Hey folks, today I would like to show you our new open source project called Opta. Creating a robust cloud infrastructure for your startup is really hard and requires a lot of DevOps expertise. Opta tries to simplify this process by providing you a clean interface to run your containers, databases, and other services on cloud providers like AWS, GCP, and Azure. In the rest of this video, I would like to show you a demo where we deploy a Ruby on Rails application to AWS. So this is what our application looks like. It has a JavaScript frontend, a Ruby on Rails backend, and it uses Postgres as the data store and Redis as a cache. This is the infrastructure that we'll be trying to create today. So it's all running in AWS. There's a Kubernetes cluster where our app containers will run. It connects to Postgres, which would be provided by AWS RDS, and Redis, which would be Elastic Cache. Everything here runs in a private subnet, and there is an Nginx ingress that's exposed to the public internet. That's where all the traffic will come through. So let's hop into the terminal and see how Opta could help us achieve this. So Opta is an infrastructure as code solution just like Terraform, but we provide you a much higher level abstraction to work with. So the first step is creating an opta.yml file, which describes the environment we want to create. And this would help us set up the architecture that we were discussing in the slides before. So I'm specifying my AWS account ID and region here. Then I'm connecting together a few of our base modules. So as you can see, I'm setting up a domain name here. I'm setting up a Kubernetes cluster with maximum nodes 8. And I'm adding some base Kubernetes resources. So there are a bunch of configuration options you can access here to tweak the kind of infra you want, which are all detailed in our documentation that I will provide you a link to towards the end. Once your file is created, you just run opta apply. As you can see, Opta is built over Terraform, but instead of you having to configure every single thing by hand, Opta provides you an industry standard setup with all the best practices built in. Looks like Opta is now finished, so we can go to our AWS console and see what all resources it created. So if I take you to AWS, you can see that it created a Kubernetes cluster for us. The cluster has an auto-scaling number of nodes. So it's 4 currently, it can go up to 8 as we specified. And you can see it installed a bunch of stuff for us. There's an ingress here, there's a metric server, there is a service mesh as well. Additionally, we can see that our RDS database is created and our Redis Elastic Cache is also there. So once all this is set up, the next step is deploying our application. So my Rails application is available here, and it has this Docker file that I've already built. So this is my Docker file. I've already built this, so I'm just gonna move on to the next step, which is creating another opta.yml. This one would describe the service. So here is the opta.yml that I created for the service. And you can see here that we are referring to the environment that we created in the previous step. Then we are specifying a bunch of configuration, like the port that I want to use, the health check path, the URI that I wanted to be exposed on, a bunch of environment variables, secrets, resources. Again, there's a bunch of configuration available here. All of that is detailed in our docs. And then lastly, I'm setting up a Postgres database and an Redis cache, and I'm linking them with my containers. What linking does is it would create these resources and pass the credentials to your container as environment variables. So once everything is set up, we just need to run opta deploy, and we provide our image here, which I have already built. And so my Docker image is called Rails with the tag v8. So as before, Opta is going to connect to your AWS account. It's going to connect to your Kubernetes cluster. It's going to push this Docker image to ECR. and then it's gonna begin the deployment. So it looks like the deployment is in process right now, and you can see live logs being streamed from your Kubernetes cluster. Looks like our application has now started. And we are now done. So if you remember, we set the domain name for this application as rails.parent.domain, and our parent domain is demo.runx.dev. Let's go back to our browser, and I'm going to open rails.demo.runx.dev. So here we have our application running on AWS in Kubernetes. And just to make sure we have the database and everything set up, I can go here and try to create a new shark. And looks like it works. Cool. And then lastly, I just want to show you some other things that Opta provides. I can run Opta logs here, which will start streaming live logs from my containers. So here are the logs. I can run Opta shell, which will have me SSH into a running container. And there I can explore the environment. I can run one-off tasks like db migrate. So here I'm inside the container. So that's all. This was a really quick overview of Opta, but there's a lot more Opta can do. We have stuff like secrets management, auto scaling, CI/CD, observability integrations. All of that stuff is there. Our project is completely open source. You can go to our GitHub and check us out. If you have any questions, feel free to hop into our Slack. All the code for this demo is right there on GitHub. And lastly, you can browse our documentation as well. Thank you.